Today we're making a simple 1x1 parrot. So you need a 1x1 inch block. The length should be at least 2 inches, but it's a lot easier if it's a bit longer. You can more easily hold on to the piece of wood. And for this project you only need a knife. We're going to start this project with a very simple top profile. You're just going to mark the middle points of all these edges. And then you need to make a curve. It doesn't have to be very round, but it shouldn't be exactly straight. Just something like this. And then we're going to remove this much wood from both of these edges. And then the other side. Now you should have something like this. Next we're going to remove one of these corners. So from the middle here, between the two corners, we're going to draw a circular curve. Something like that. And now we're going to remove this part. Like that. Then we're gonna cut this remaining piece on the top into about half. If it helps, you can draw a center line like that, and then 2 lines in the center of the remaining halves. And now these 2 areas are gonna be taken off from above this corner. So you can draw a line and then make some more sweeping cuts. Next you can mark a line over here on the top, about 1/3 of the way from this edge. And you can continue it to the side, just straight down like that. And now this area below this line is going to be cut off. That's good. Now at this point it makes sense to make a very basic sketch of the parrot. So this is where the head is going to be. We can make this part curved. Take away these unnecessary corners in the drawing. Same over here. It's not going to be that sharp. If it's difficult to make the sketch, I suggest to look at some images of parrots. This point should be about halfway between the lower edge and this corner. And if you have a shorter block, then that just means that you need to make a smaller drawing, like this, and cut off a little bit more wood. But now, based on this drawing, we're gonna carve this upper part into a smoother, nicer shape. So what I'm doing here is just basically taking away all of the sharp edges except for this one, because this is where the beak is going to be. Then we're also going to carve a little bit of this edge to get the basic shape going. I'm making V-cuts You should leave a decent amount of wood over here, so just make a tight V-cut like this and don't remove a lot of this because the feet are going to be here. And I'm extending these V-cuts to the sides to carve away the line. Then I'm gonna continue a line from this direction. Like that. And like that. This is gonna be where the tips of the wings are going to be. And we can remove that line with V-cuts. Like that. And like that. And now that we have the place for the wings marked, we can make this part flat. It's not going to be very wide. There's this small flat area now for the tail. And we can also continue it all the way to this cut so that there's not an edge like this, but it goes smoothly. Something like this. Then about halfway between these 2 points, I'm gonna draw a line, also on the other side, and then I'm gonna connect it to this corner. And it can be slightly curved like this. And we're gonna make a V-cut to remove that line, like that. Then let's define the head a little better. This part should be sloped, kind of like that. That's pretty good. And then we can make tiny V-cuts over here, just below the top. This is where the beak is going to begin. Like that. And then the edge of the beak on the faces side is going to be 2 curves. Like this. We already have this middle point of the curve. It's kind of like the edge of the face. So this section is just divided into 2 curves like that. And now we can define this edge a lot better because we have an idea of how much space the beak is going to need. We can go all the way around like that, creating this round underside of the beak. I'm just making the front also a little bit rounder. Like that. So for now it should be just like one smooth curve like that. And then from the middle of these two curves, we draw a line like that. I'm gonna recreate this also on the other side, trying to make it as symmetrical as possible. And now, with V-cuts, we can remove this line we just made. Notice here that I'm removing more wood from the outer edge than from over here. And this will automatically create this kind of a sharp beak shape on the lower side here. Next we can take this lower part of the beak a little bit more inward, because it's not going to be as protruding as this bigger part. So we can remove a little bit of the wood. Like that. Then we can make the sides of the face a little bit more flat. We don't need these drawings anymore. We can just make a couple V-cuts like this to make the beak a little more separate from the rest of the face. Like that. Before we carve the legs, if it seems like there's too much mass somewhere, you can make some adjustments. In my case, the body is too big compared to the head. You can also slim this top part down a little bit to give the parrot a bit of a separation between the head and the body, to create just a little bit of a neck. A few sweeping cuts like that work pretty well. Then we can also continue these sweeping cuts to the middle of the back to separate the wings from each other. I'm basically making this Y shape like that. And then over here, starting from this corner, we can continue the underside of the wings to go a little higher. A few V-cuts like that. And we have a nice defined wing. This can then be extended all the way to the top, making a little curve like that. On the back side here, I'm extending this line between the wings to be on one side of the center, because I want it to seem like one wing is on top of the other. But this means that I need to slim this down so that there's no corner on this side, and that the wing just smoothly kind of ends under this wing. And then we can make the end of the wing appear from the other side. Like that. Next we're going to carve the feet, and that just takes a curve like that at first. And the feet are going to be like this, a curve on both sides, and then basically a straight line on the front, although not quite this far from the body. And then a few sweeping cuts from the sides. And then we can make a V cut like this. And the same on the other side. So we make two V cuts, one from back here, like that, and then one from the front. And this is a very easy way to define kind of like the front and back portion of the feet, the forward pointing toes and the backward pointing toes. Like that. And then just pick a suitable point to where the toes should end, and then make a V cut also on the front. I'm flattening out the feet from the top to make them a little bit slimmer. Then we can also make a V cut between the two feet to separate them from each other. Like this. And also another V cut to create a gap between the toes. Now there's nothing left to do except make some final adjustments. So you can clean up some of the cuts, maybe make the end of the tail a different shape. And then after that, you can also change the shape of the piece of wood that the parrot is sitting on. But apart from that, we're done.